Well, I want to welcome you all to another episode of the Single But Not Solo podcast. My name is Lawana Wilson, as you know, your host, and I'm here today with a very special friend and guest. I'm excited to have her on. She was a speaker on our Lifestyles Virtual Singles Conference this year, and she is back for a more in-depth discussion. Today's topic, we're going to hit part two. I thought I would be married by now. We're going to hit the part two of it. And I think, no, I know. I'm not going to say I think. I know that today is going to be a very impactful conversation for my singles out there, men and women who are in that space where you really did think you'd be married by now. And somehow, here we are. Here we are, and we are still single. And so, welcome our special guest, Dr. Jasmine Leigh Morse. Dr. Jasmine, as I call her affectionately, thanks for being here today. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you so much, Lawana, for having me. It's a pleasure to join you again, to speak to the women, speak to the men, speak to those singles out there who are looking to be loved.
Hey, well, we are going to talk about this topic of I thought I would be married by now. Mm-hmm. And it's a touchy one, Dr. Jasmine. We it's tough. Can I just say that? It's tough. It's a tough space to be in, and I know that we didn't have any intentions. I know I didn't, to be single this long. I just assumed because of the household I grew up in, the environment that I grew up in. Most of my friends had 2-parent homes and, parents that to this day, married. And so it was just, I saw that modeled not only in my house, but in the houses of my, friends that I grew up around. And so most of us really thought that we would be married by now. Somehow we are here and we are, in our late 40s and 50s, and we are still single. And it's becoming a little bit of a sore point at this point.
I get it.
And so as we get into this conversation, I want to do a proper introduction of Dr. Jasmine, and then we will get on into it. So Dr. Jasmine Leigh Morse is a multi-talented author, educator, award-winning community leader, and founder of JLM Global Consulting, LLC, and Girl Go Global, a community for purpose-driven women. So for 20 plus years, Dr. Jasmine has used her unique skills as an educator, professional writer, and communication strategist to build a career that allows her to serve small business owners in academia and at all levels of government. So whether she is mentoring women or girls, engaging students during university lectures, speaking as a keynote, or serving at all levels of government, she is driven by providing support to others to meet needs, equip, and train. And in addition to making the daily records successful by 40 very important professionals list, she is the President's Management Council Fellowship, entrepreneur, and writer with interest in topics that concern women, and a very great book that I want you all to be aware of that I think goes very well with this conversation, her book called Heart Rhythms. And we'll talk a little bit more about heart rhythms as we get into the conversation. But again, thank you so much for being here, Dr. Jasmine. And let's start with a little icebreaker here.
Okay, this is fun.
Share with me your theory. Like, why are there so many single people in America? Is it by choice? Is it by force? Is it cultural barriers? Like, what, in your opinion, is really going on? What's happening?
I think there's a couple things going on, and maybe it's more than a couple, but I would have to say some of it's by choice for some people. Some people do not want to be married and they want to be lifelong singles. There are those out there. If you can believe that, there are those out there.
Hey, that's an option.
I think I can speak only for the Black woman, right? Yes. We are told to pursue career versus pursue career and a mate.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we say, even I have my sister who says, "Oh, I'm going to wait till I finish my master's degree. Well, I'm going
Yeah.
to wait."
Yeah.
But I will have to say, I've gotten a PhD, and that was not my story. I was not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily waiting until I finished those things. I was still dating, looking to be loved, all of the
Right.
things. But I just think sometimes some women in
Mm.
particular wait until they get their career underway and
Yeah.
then say, okay, now
Mm-hmm.
it's time for me to open up for
Mm-hmm.
love, right? Then I think as far as the men are concerned, some of them don't want to get married as early as some of the women do.
Okay.
Right. And so then there's some time. So it's a lot of things. And some people were not raised in
Mm-hmm.
households where they saw marriage. And so they don't have a
Absolutely.
model. I talk about it
Mm-hmm.
in my book, having a model to look
Yes.
for those things. Because when I think back to my childhood, not very many women in my family were even married. My parents
Mm-hmm.
were divorced.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was divorced. My aunt
Okay.
was divorced. So I had
Mm-hmm.
no model for
Mm-hmm.
love, healthy love and relationships
Yeah.
amongst men. My mother was not in the happiest of relationships. My grandmother was abused. My
Mm-hmm.
aunt was divorced. All of
Mm-hmm.
those things, I did not have the model. And so I think
Absolutely.
part of it is some of us, male, female, and the like,
Yeah.
don't have a model for what it means to be in a loving
Yeah.
relationship. And so too often we are succumb to our environment, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest. We have to come to our environment. And then
Yeah.
culture says, you don't need to be married. So we got all
Right.
of these competing priorities. But if we think biblically, we think about what the Lord says, He wants
Mm-hmm.
us to be fruitful and multiply. He
Yes,
wants us to
we
do
do.
it in the confines of a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So those are a few of my theories, but I think the top one may be this whole idea about having a model, someone to look,
Yes.
representation, as we like to say, representation
Yes.
in our own circles, in our own environments, to let us know that it's okay to say I do.
Whew. Dr. Jasmine, that is huge. That model situation and having that in front of you to even see and know what's healthy
Mm-hmm.
is huge.
Yeah.
And so to your point, when you don't have a healthy perspective, I've never really even seen that, it does make it more challenging to then pursue something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say, for instance, I know I have a few friends who were like, I didn't have that, and that made me want it more. So they saw the single parent trying hard, working hard, struggling on their own, taking care of everything, and they were saying to themselves as they grew up, yeah, no, I'm going to find somebody to do this with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. However, again, without the model, do you even know how? So you
Yes.
get the person,
Right.
and like, how well does that work for you? Like,
How
you
does
have
that work
you
out?
you don't have the tools, you don't have the skill because you didn't see it modeled, you didn't see anybody doing that in front of you. So then it still leaves you kind of in a big learning curve, as I said,
For sure.
for your relationships once you get into one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great kind of starter. I just wanted to kind of see, like, what's your perspective on, like, why are we all out here single and really wanting to be in a relationship, but we're struggling? What's
Yeah.
the deal with that? And I think you're right. I think it has a lot to do with all of those factors.
Yeah.
Throwing in culture in there, and I tell
Mm.
you what, it's a wild situation out here right now in social media as it pertains to dating and relationships. Like, we come up with something like every other month, I think there's a new viral video that is talking about what we're not going to do. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like, seriously, like, can we get on the bandwagon of what we're willing to do? Can we
Mm-hmm.
get on the bandwagon of what it takes to actually nurture and grow a genuine, healthy relationship? Because we talk so much about the negative. Everything's negative.
Mm-hmm.
The women aren't this, the men aren't that. Um,
Sure.
I'm not, it's just what I'm not. And I'm just like, wow, this is nothing. This really has nothing to do with relationships. And I
Mm.
don't know why we don't see that. I don't
Wow.
know why we don't see that this conversation of the back and forth and the gender war is not getting us closer
It's not getting us anywhere, actually.
anywhere. It is spinning our wheels and we are in circles, and we are more and more pit against each other. I want to stay on this a little bit. It's not really on our topic, but
Mm-hmm.
it just needs to be said. I was sitting with a married friend last night. She and I do a little bi-monthly catch up every
Mm-hmm.
now and then, and she mentioned that she says, I'm off of social media for a little bit. I said, oh yeah, I get it. No, she's like, yeah. She said, ever since I got married, now my timeline is bombarded with, no, ever since I got pregnant, my
Mm.
timeline is bombarded with women saying how their husband doesn't understand what they're going through.
Oh.
He said, and then after I had the baby, I think, yeah. So she's had her little girl. So she said ever since when she got pregnant, she was getting all the men don't understand what we're going through. Then after she had the baby, now there's, the whole postpartum conversation, and it really intensified. Men have no clue I'm going through all of this, and
Yeah.
my husband is in there, and he's just. She said it was like putting things in her head that
Mm-hmm.
she was like, I love my husband.
Right. I love that. I
He's
love what you're
supportive.
saying. Not
You know what
that,
I'm
but I
saying?
love what you're saying.
He's supportive. He's great. But social media had tapped into, of course, all the things that she had searched in Google while being pregnant and whatever. And now her timeline, the algorithm was feeding her timeline full of mad, disgruntled women who one woman went far enough to say, she said that, I'm technically a single parent. I just happen to have a husband. And she
Oh.
said after that, she was like, I'm off social media.
Mm-hmm.
So the point I'm making by bringing that up is we're getting it from both ends. The
Mm.
singles are in the gender war, and the marrieds are in the he doesn't understand me, she doesn't understand me war.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need people to see the plot and the strategy to
Mm-hmm.
keep us apart.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were made for each other, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Jasmine.
Yeah.
I believe that with my whole heart.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many entities that are doing everything to keep us apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
So
love
that's,
that. I
yeah.
love that you acknowledge that. I love that that's being that she was had foresight
Yeah.
enough or intuitive enough to
You
understand what
know?
was actually happening. Because
Absolutely.
it's so interesting. We could be watching a movie, and I'm like, and I want to apply what I'm seeing on television
Mhm.
to what's going on between my
Real
husband
life.
and I. And I'm like,
Mhm.
he like, babe, that's not us. And
That's
I'm
not
like,
us.
girl, what you talking about? Like, why
Right.
are you trying to
Ye
project that
Right.
on your relationships and find something
Yeah.
wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. It is entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally just there for the time passer. It really has no impact, or shouldn't, I'll say it that
Mm-hmm.
way, on our real lives. But it just goes to show you, Dr. Jasmine, how easily influenced we are. We don't
Yeah,
like to admit that. But as a society, as a people, as humans, we are easily influenced. And the powers that be know that. The powers
yeah,
that be that
they
know,
do.
they know that. So that I just wanted to put that out there. We were made for each other, and all of the madness that we see, all the arguments that we see, there are entities at work that are trying so hard to keep men and women from ever seeing eye to eye. I'm just going to put that right there. Something to think
Mhm.
about.
Yeah,
Okay.
good, good
Something to
one.
think about. As we kind of transition, though, can you kind of share a little bit about your journey? I want to talk a little bit about your expectations surrounding marriage growing up,
Mhm.
since you mentioned that, you didn't really have the model in front of you. So where do you think you kind of started to create, where'd you pull from to create in your mind what you thought you wanted as far as relationship and marriage?
I talk about it a lot in my book, Heart
Mhm.
Rhythms,
Yes.
my favorite book, one of my
Yes. Our
favorites,
favorite book.
of course. But I've realized that I was being super idealistic, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Doing exactly what you're just saying. At the time,
Mhm.
there was no social media when I was growing up, but there was television. There were fairy tales that we
Yes.
would read.
Yes, there
There's
were.
all these love stories out there.
Oh, yes.
So
Plenty of that.
we grow up as young women, especially when I was growing up, wanting these things. I don't know, somewhere around, I would have to say college, or
Mhm.
maybe even just after college,
Okay.
I was dating someone, and I thought that it would be we were married. We dated in
Mhm.
college, and we broke up after we graduated, and I was like super heartbroken. I had prior to that relationship, I was dating someone else,
Mhm.
and he actually proposed.
Mm.
And I was like, I don't want to marry you. Like, why are you doing this? Like, we're in school. I'm going to get my master's. Like, I'm
Mhm.
going to get my next degree.
Mhm.
So I'm not even interested. And by the way, I think I want to just cut this off.
Oh, okay.
Right. So marriage wasn't on my mind.
Mhm. Mhm.
But when I met someone and still in college that I thought I would marry,
Mhm.
because I was doing what some of our other folks do beyond the Black community. I was dating and looking toward marriage after
Right.
I graduated,
Mhm.
but still knowing that I had these other goals around my career and things
Mhm.
of that nature. But I think it's when we broke up, I think it triggered rejection in my heart.
Mm.
I think it triggered because I did not grow up with my father, my
Mhm.
biological father, in the house. There were some things that I struggled with in my childhood that just gave me this, I guess, spirit of rejection and abandonment, these thoughts
Yeah,
of abandonment and things
that's
of that
real.
nature. And so I think what happened was when we broke up and he kind of told me, well, you'll never find anybody better
Mm.
than me.
Okay.
It was like it triggered something in me that had me spiraling emotionally.
Mhm.
It like just
Mhm.
awakened all these emotions.
Mhm.
Whereas when I guess I had control of the situation, I was the one saying no,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To a previous proposal.
Mhm.
This thing just kind of awakened some emotions in me that just had me spiraling.
Yeah.
And I think from that point on, it had me just desiring marriage in a way
Mm.
that was unhealthy.
Mm.
So I talk
Mhm.
about my heart rhythm. So if
Mhm.
we think about uh, our heart rhythm in a way, our natural heart rhythm, I say in my book that I call it a emotional heart arrhythmia, right?
Mhm. Right.
This idea that the pace of my heart is desiring marriage so much that it's causing me to by any means necessary
Mhm.
seek that validation, seek love, seek those relationships that were not healthy for me,
Mhm.
and so or that God never intended for me. And
Yeah.
so I would get super emotional, and then my heart rhythm would start to speed up,
Mhm.
and everything in my life was driving me toward marriage and a family and career and all those
Yeah.
things, but specifically marriage. And so that rejection turned into anxiety and
Mhm.
stress,
Mhm.
right? And I could really feel when you are super emotional, when you're just feeling anxiety, that's what you feel. Your heart
Yeah.
just
You
beating,
do. You
beating,
do.
and you feel it so much so that you
Mhm.
can feel the heartbreak. You can feel all those emotions in
Yeah.
your being.
Yes, you do.
So that's why I call it heart rhythms, because my
Mhm.
heart rhythm was unhealthy.
Yes.
It
I
this
love that.
My season of singleness, my heart rhythm was attracting people that
Mhm.
were a part of the worst parts of my being. So I was attracting men that were rejected, attracting men that were
Mm.
overly emotional, attracting men
Yeah.
that were felt abandoned by their
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
members. So it was just so much
Mhm.
emotion surrounding this whole idea of marriage that also kept me engulfed in the thought that that's what I felt like that's what I needed to have in order to
Mhm.
feel happy, in order to
Mhm.
feel like I had accomplished something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't until I would have to say another breakup that I actually
Mhm.
had to step back and say,
Mhm.
you know what? What's going on with you, girl? You
Yeah.
need to figure out what's wrong with you. You are not ready to get married. First of all,
Mhm.
let's put that
Mhm.
at the top of your list. And second of all, you got to figure out why you're responding to this in this way
Yeah.
when these relationships don't work out, when these relationships aren't working out in the way that you hope, which is this
Mhm.
ideal perspective of
Mhm.
marriage. So
So
that
good.
is where it kind of originated. Once I paused to reflect, that's when the healing began, and that's when I began to open up and start to heal. And so then
Mm.
once I healed, then I was able to start attracting a different kind of man.
Mm.
Okay.
It's
That's when
good,
I was
Dr.
able
Jen.
to take back my control,
Yes. Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
at this point, I'm being selective,
Mhm.
right?
Okay. Mhm.
Because before it was like, okay, he liked me, okay, I'll try him out. I'm just moving in a way that wasn't healthy.
Yeah, too fast, moving too fast,
Yeah, moving too
and
fast.
and just and as we say, wanting what you want.
Yeah,
I
want what
want
I
what I
want when
want,
I want it.
and I'm just gonna make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how we get. And I've been there
Yeah.
too, where it's like, I have said things like this. Okay, I'm tired. I'm tired now. I'm tired of being around women all the time. I'm tired of
Mm-hmm.
talking to women all the time. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go out here and find me some guys to talk to. And it literally was I don't care. Now I probably didn't say that, but in my mind I was like, and I don't
Right.
care.
And look,
I don't
I
care
told
who it
my
is.
mom and sister one time, look, I'm tired of doing Valentine's Day with y'all every year. You know, I mean, I was dating, but but it wasn't nothing where I'm gonna get,
Yeah,
that whole Valentine's Day thing or
right.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just occasionally, or it didn't
Mm-hmm.
last long, or what have you.
Right.
But I did have some interactions with guys. I said, "Oh, I thought that might work out," and things. I
Mm-hmm.
talk about a lot of different relationships and dating experiences. Some funny, some not
Yes.
so funny in my book. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for sure. I get it. My heart rhythm was not in a place. It was causing me to attract the thing, the worst part of my being.
Yes.
Like I said, I was attracting people
Yes.
who were rejected, attracting people
Rejected it.
who were abandoned. And so my
Yeah.
heart just kept beating. I
Yeah.
needed to slow down and
Mm-hmm.
heal so I can get the right rhythm.
And think about it. That's why I love your book, and I love this correlation you're making with the actual physical heart rhythm
Mm-hmm.
and the heart rhythm of our romantic lives or just our
Mm-hmm.
lives in general.
Sure.
Um, because when you think about it, when your heart rhythm is off physically, you cannot do the things that you normally would do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, get around like you get around normally. It slows you down. You have to constantly pause and kind of recover. You can't just move and go freely
Mm-hmm.
because your heart rhythm is off and it's affecting your entire self. So
Mm-hmm.
your heart has to be at a steady pumping pace. It
Mm-hmm.
can't be erratic. If it's erratic, you could go into heart failure. You could,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things that can happen just physically. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that along the lines of romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Dr. Jasmine, you're attracting all of your worst self to you.
Mm-hmm.
The men who are rejected, the men who are emotionally unavailable, the
Yeah.
men who were, all the things that you don't need, that you don't want, because you're out of rhythm.
Yes, I would
That's
say
who's coming to you.
exactly.
And it is so true. When you present yourself in a healed, I know I've experienced this personally when I'm walking in a place of wholeness and healed. There are guys who are like, I wouldn't even talk to you because I knew I wasn't where I needed to be
Mm-hmm.
to even be talking to you.
Right.
And so that shows you how important, crucial, I will say, it is
Mm-hmm.
that we make sure we are at our as healthy as we can get
For sure.
as it pertains to who we are, and the condition of our
The
hearts.
condition of our heart.
Now, of course, we're speaking in a spiritual sense as well,
Uh-huh.
because the Bible talks about man looks at the outward appearance. We're, as humans, we're concerned about how fine she is or he is, how
Mm,
he
don't
how
go
he's
there.
built. Come on, we got our list, like he gotta be. We got our
Yeah,
measurements, the
that's
whole
another
nine.
thing.
We
Mhm,
gotta have this A, B, and C. Okay, and so we are all set and ready for that. However, how much time are we taking to really see the character of these people? Really
mhm,
see, what do they value? Do our values even correlate? Do we
mhm,
even see eye to eye on some really important things that would affect a strong relationship if we were to get into one? Where am I? Dr. Jasmine just said, she had to say, wait, okay, hold on. What is going on with you?
mhm,
Like, how often do we just stop and say, and look in the mirror and say, what is wrong? What's going on? What's going on?
mhm. Yeah,
Okay. Girlfriend, sit down. What is going on with you? And get ourselves into a space where we can actually do some, what I call, self reflection.
yep,
And really start digging to get to the core of some of this stuff, because that's where you're going to find healing. And once you are healed, you're going to start attracting a completely different
For
type
sure.
of person.
For sure.
And I think that's what we're dealing a lot with. We're not spending enough time doing our own self work to even get into a position where we would attract the
Mm-hmm.
kind of people that are good for us and that we're good for. So I love, that's one of my favorite parts of your book, is just how that heart rhythm just throws everything off.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not right, throws everything off, for sure. That's a great point. I want to talk a little bit about you. In your book, you have, like you said, some funny stories about the kind of people you were meeting, some not so funny, some really serious, difficult ones as well. And kind of tie it into this next question. As time went on and you continue to date, um, what were you running into, and what kind of changes did you start to kind of make in yourself? So that's kind of a two-part question. Like,
Yeah.
what type of guys were you running into? Feel free to share whichever example you want. And then, but what kind of things were you learning about you and the things that you needed to kind of start, working on to get to that place of wholeness and healthy relationship?
Well, once I paused to recenter myself, I also got sick in
Mhm.
that time frame.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I really did was work on my health, work on just healing my inside from the inside out, literally. So I dedicated myself to juicing, working out 3 or 4
Mm.
times a
Mm,
week,
okay.
um, kickboxing, boxing,
Yes.
spin, all of the things, and also just really fasting and
Mhm.
praying and dedicating myself back to the Lord.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the midst of all of that, I was able to kind of help myself internally as well as spiritually.
Okay.
And then I remember being in my office one day at one of my previous positions, and I say, Lord, I think I'm ready to start dating. I think because I noticed I was seeing a guy, and this is in my book, and he friend zoned me. Right,
Mm.
we
Mhm.
were like, we met in the gym, and that's
Okay.
another thing. We met in the gym.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yep.
I know he was checking me out, and I was checking him out, and he was kind of like all of the things. He was the height, he was the build, he was everything.
Okay.
Right? And
Right.
so, as we got to know each other, at the time when we met, I had just gotten out of the relationship, and I wasn't ready to kind of like jump back in.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then he noticed that, but we kept dating. Right, we
Okay.
kept going out. We took
Mhm.
each other out for birthdays. We, held hands, smooch, smooch, all that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
but we were never intimate. But we literally loved each other. We said I love
Yeah.
you to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so one day I think we had expressed, possibly being in a relationship. And I think he took a moment to kind of think about it.
Mhm.
Because I think one of the things that pushed us not to be in a relationship was I told him I didn't want us to be intimate.
Okay.
And he was like, I can't do that. So we
Mm.
never got into a relationship for that reason.
Mm.
And then what happened was he had a come to Jesus moment in his life. He had a
Wow.
bad accident, and then he rededicated himself to the Lord.
Yeah.
And then when he circled back, he was like, I think I'm going to be abstaining. But at that point,
Oh.
we were at a place where he had already told me that he didn't want a
Yeah.
relationship with me.
Yeah.
He had told me that I you're too ambitious. That was his words, and that's in my book.
Mm.
You're
Mm.
too ambitious. You're a
Mhm.
great woman. His exact words was kind of like, you're a great woman, Jazz. You all of this. You got this going for you, that going for you, but you're too ambitious for me. That's what he said. And I'm
Whew.
like, I'm feminine
I
in the
know.
word.
Like,
Somebody's,
how
I'm,
about not?
I'm doing all the things.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
you're very feminine.
Yes.
I'm
Like,
not leading with my degrees. He
right.
knows how much
Right.
money I make because basically do the same thing. But so it's no big deal. I know you got the money. I'm moving in your place. Like, I'm not even trying to,
None of
take over
that.
and lead. Like,
Mhm.
he said you're too ambitious.
Wow.
It hurt me at the time because like I
Yes.
told you, we said we loved each other. Like, I really thought that it could work out. I thought that he could be the
Mhm.
one, if you will. Then
Mhm.
when he gave himself to the Lord and was like, I'm gonna be, he a pastor now, by the way.
Right. That
when he
was like,
when he got
well,
his
this is
together,
it.
Not that I wanted to be in that kind of lifestyle. That's a whole
Right.
other thing. But it was like he just gave. My thing was I knew that he was living right, if that's what you want to the word I
Mm-hmm.
could use, and I knew
Mm-hmm.
that he had really been leaning into the Lord in a way that I
Mm-hmm.
would want my husband to.
Yes.
And so what happened was, he said, I'm gonna be praying with you for a mate. And then I end up meeting my husband. And he said, I'm not, this was his exact words. We cared about each other so much. He would come talk to me, coach me on guys and everything. And then
Wow.
he said, I'm not gonna start dating until you get right. That's what he told me.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then when I met my husband, he backed off. And
Dr.
we
Jack.
like we would talk periodically. We would do lunch. We would still hanging out. But then he slowly started backing up. And he would
Mm-mm-mm.
reach out, "How y'all doing? How y'all doing?" And eventually he stopped.
Mm,
He ended up getting married himself.
that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So
Wow.
my husband and I started just being in a relationship and started dating before we got married,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't even talk anymore.
Mm,
And I actually found out that he actually got married maybe like a few months before I did. Mm-hmm.
that's crazy. That's a
Yeah.
crazy story, Dr. Jasmine.
He was like, I'm gonna be praying with you. I'm gonna be, he must have been, we were touching and agreeing, I guess. Cause I remember one time crying on his shoulder. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
I was just super emotional. I think it was coming out. I think I was in a healed place, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just like, dang, I like you. We're not together. And then I'm meeting these guys that I'm dating, and that's not working out. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely was attracting a different type of man.
Okay.
I definitely was attracting, but I had my boundaries. I wasn't so desperate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would be able to say, "Oh, that's not working out. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you good, but not for me."
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like you, but I'm not going to just keep on drawing
Mm-hmm.
it out when
Trying to
I
force
know
it.
that this is not a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. I
but
love
I will have to go back really quick.
yeah, go
The
ahead.
Holy Spirit, when I was in my late 20s, told me that I was going to be meeting someone when I was 35.
Okay.
Now that goes against everything that people say about getting married by a certain age. He
True.
literally told me an age.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't 35 yet when all this was transpiring.
Mm-hmm.
When in 2016, my turn 35, May 2016. I
Okay.
said, all right, God, I'm 35 now. Where you at? You told me I'm
You
ready.
said it.
I'm good. As soon as I literally, as soon as when I was in my office and I said, Lord, I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready to start dating, it
Mm-hmm.
was like that next week, people started approaching me. It was
Whoa.
literally like that next week because my spirit now was ready to receive,
Open and healed and
right?
ready to go.
At
Yeah.
that time, I'm giving what they say, I'm giving.
Yes.
I don't want to be bothered. I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving, leave me alone. I'm giving, I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to work on myself.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I opened myself up and spoke it out into the atmosphere and said, Lord,
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready.
Yep.
And my ready agree with his ready.
Is ready.
Okay, that's another thing. My ready got to agree with God, right?
Now.
When my
Yes.
ready agree with his ready,
Mm-hmm.
then I started dating. He allowed me to start going on dates. I dated some younger than me, some,
Mm-hmm.
much, much older than me. I just, a
Mm-hmm.
few people. I was meeting people. And then September 2016, I met my husband. So
Wow.
from when I turned and I was 35.
Yep. When it all started rolling.
Yep. And that's what
Yeah.
that goes against everything that society and culture
Mm-hmm.
says.
It does. It does. It does.
So
Which
I really want to point that out to some ladies. Like, what did
yes.
God say?
That's what I'm about to say. Which that means we just need to drill in right there because we're listening. There's so many voices, y'all. So many voices out here that are giving us advice,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Giving you the tips, the strategies,
Mm-hmm.
giving you the game. It's like everybody's got an angle that they're coming from in
Mm-hmm.
regards to how you're going to find him or her,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to encourage our single men and women to please take some time to what I call do some, sorting.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that, throw that out. You know how you do a little spring cleaning and you kind of go through the stuff in the house and be like, well, why do I still have this? I don't even wear this. Let me take this to the Goodwill. Do some sorting.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you're hearing on social media, even your favorites. I know we have our favorites that we love, our podcast, but we love all that. even your favorites, even me. I'm gonna ask you to sit down and sort, and
Mm-hmm.
and the stuff that's not serving you, you know it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Jasmine just gave us a story that goes all outside the lines and boundaries of what is being said is the way it's done and the time frame that it's done in. We got
Mm-hmm.
to get on God's schedule.
Yes.
We have to. We got to let him regulate our heart.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we just out here stumbling around in the dark is the best way I can describe.
For
Just
sure.
trying to make it work and force it to work. That's the worst kind of relationship to be in, is something I'm trying to force and make it be what it's not. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we have all been there at some point.
For sure.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
time waster and it will break you down. It will wear you down. And the sooner we like, all right, and take that time to start getting us together, then we can present ourselves in a healed way and again start pulling in and attracting the kind of people that are also healed and want what we want that healthy, loving relationship, want marriage. But the
Mm-hmm.
majority, I hate to say it, but a lot of the folk, I won't say majority, I'm just going to be an optimist right there. There's a lot of people out here that just they don't want healthy. They don't want healthy. They don't want marriage, but they're saying one thing and their actions aren't lining up.
Mm.
And if we're not in a healed enough place, Dr. Jasmine, we won't be able to discern that.
Yeah.
It looks good from
Mm-hmm.
here, and we won't be able to determine that this is actually really, really bad until we're all in, and now we, lost and trying to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love what you just shared, because I think we don't talk enough about that at all.
Yeah.
Getting on God's rhythm and his time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing about that. I'm gonna get off my soapbox in just a minute, I promise. Here's the thing about that. We do have these little things that we say in the church or in Christendom, particularly maybe even Black church. It may even be Black church at this point. Uh, well, I'm waiting on God's best.
Ciao.
Well, I'm waiting on God's timing. And you know what that's turned into, Dr. Jasmine? That's turned into a crutch
Yeah.
and an
Yeah.
excuse and a way to avoid and deflect.
Mm-hmm.
My singles already know I'm single but not solo. I don't let them get away with stuff like that. So they know where I'm going with this when I get on them about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's just another dance around the bush, and we're not dealing with what's really going on. I'm gonna leave that
Mm-hmm.
right there. However, again, that is just crucial, and I need us to really take a little moment and really soak that in of what we just said. Okay. Um, I do want to talk a little bit about dating apps before we start wrapping up. And I just want your opinion. I don't think you did any of those, because back then
No,
it wasn't
I
really
have
that
not.
big.
Yeah.
It wasn't
If
that big.
I would
So I
have.
do want your opinion though.
Yeah, my opinion. I have a really close friend who is met and married her husband off a dating app.
Mm,
I have some colleagues who have met and married off a dating app, so I'm not against it.
okay. Okay.
I think it's about hearing the Lord about what's right for you,
Mhm.
right? For me, that wasn't my way, right? The
Yeah.
Lord literally told, I had this urge, this nudge
Okay.
to go to the Congressional Black Caucus
Mhm.
in Washington, D.C. in 2016.
Mhm.
That's where I met my husband.
Mhm.
I could not rest. I was like, I got to get to this place. The Lord wants me to go here.
Okay.
So I think, because now, had I not been open to going to that event by myself, because some of us don't want to go anywhere by ourselves, by the way.
Right.
Had I not been open to going, I would have missed out on something
Mhm.
that would have been good for me.
Mhm.
So I
Very true.
think, I'm not against it. I don't know much about it. I've never been on a dating app, if you will, but I do know some success. I do have some success
Mhm.
stories in my circle. So I do think it can be useful to some,
Yeah.
if it's applied and if you feel led, but don't there are so many ways to meet people.
Yes.
There's so
Yes.
many ways to meet people. So if you're
Mhm.
not going to get on a dating app, by all means, get up and get dressed and go outside.
Thank you. Could you say it again, Dr. Jasmine?
Get up, get dressed, and get outside. Do things. I like I said, I met people at the gym. Met people, be open to different things.
Mhm.
Go where they are, right?
Mhm.
Go where they are.
That seems so
You gotta be
simple,
seen to be
but you
found.
got to be seen. That seems like it would be so simple. Now, I don't know yet. I may need to dig a little bit and do a little research on like statistics. Like, is it because of the pandemic that now has us in a space where we just like, ugh, I don't really want to get all together to go outside. There's something going on though.
Yeah,
I
I
see it
think people were doing
too
it before
much.
though, right? Weren't they people not, you know,
Yeah,
feeling like they need to go in a crowd, feeling like they need to go with their best
you
girlfriend,
know,
they can't go, that kind of thing. So
I mean, I have to admit, I still have some I still get a little anxiety in
okay.
big crowds, like large, like it's got to be like concert big, crowds. I still get a
Yeah.
little anxiety, and I may mask up. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to even hold you. I might put on a mask. If I'm traveling like internationally, or if I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be passing through a lot of airports, I'm probably gonna mask up.
Yeah.
However, because it's just so much traffic, it's basically my thing. It's like, oh, so much traffic. Let me just use caution. You know,
That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
So, however, the point of just showing up, I
Mm-hmm.
think that really speaks volumes. And Dr. Jasmine, sometimes you have to make up in your mind. This is hard for us ladies. I don't know how hard it is for our guys. I really would like a guy to talk about it, but sometimes it's hard for us to just be like, you know what, my girl don't want to go, my other girl don't want to go, I'm going, and
Mm-hmm.
go by ourselves.
Yeah.
um I used to be pretty good at it, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to admit the pandemic has affected. So that's why I said I wonder how much it has, because now I'm like, and calling two or three, hey, don't nobody want to go, and then I kind of
Yeah.
talk myself out, okay, never mind. I'm the kind of person, that's the way I think, is like,
Mhm.
get in the space, get in the
Yeah,
place where they are.
for sure.
Your chances, your ratio goes up
Yeah.
if you're there versus sitting at home versus just over here with my girls. I mean, it's I'm not a math person, but you can do the math. I mean, it
Mhm.
eventually it's going to pay off.
For sure.
So
Eventually pay
so I
off.
just really want to encourage that, ladies. If you I have a couple of married friends. They're like, from now on, we are calling our single friends when there are situations that we're in or whatever it is, where we know there's a high population of single men, and we're
Okay.
calling y'all and be like, get here.
Good for you.
And I love that. I think it
Mhm.
really takes a village for us too these days to really kind of help in a lot of these situations. But
Yeah.
I think that is so great. And I can't encourage our ladies and our men enough. Just show up.
So when I
Right.
met my husband, we I don't think it was no love at first sight, but
Mhm.
for me at the time, we
Mhm.
just was getting to know. We met each other, and we were kind of getting to know each other. I just thought he was a guy that I met at the caucus. He's from
Right.
Florida, so I had no intention on thinking that I would see
Mhm.
him anymore.
Yep.
So having said that, I'm a very friendly person. So if you
Mhm.
see me somewhere, I'm gonna speak, we're gonna laugh, we're gonna joke. I'm kind of an open person like that. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times guys, will be looking for someone that's friendly. They'll be looking for
They
someone
are.
who's willing to talk,
Mhm.
or not, not getting so attached right away.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
have heard some guys, even one of my brothers-in-laws, he said he wanted women to feel like they can call too.
Yeah.
Like the guy, they feel like, they waiting for
Mhm.
the guy to do all the calling, do all the reaching
Mhm.
out.
Mhm. Mhm.
One of the things that my husband said that he liked was that I would call him back,
Oh wow.
or that sometimes I would reach out.
Uh-huh.
But I like talking to him. It was not like I was. It wasn't like I was, trying to anything to materialize.
Right. It was just like
I just
good
liked talking to
conversation.
him.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So I would call him up or call him back, and just kind of went from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the comments that he made. So maybe it's the
Mhm.
case that for him anyway, some women don't want to call back,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
And that's
feel
unfortunate.
like they're automatically in this relationship.
Mhm. Mhm.
That wasn't my intent.
Yeah.
Because he even
Yeah.
asked me, "Are you dating other people?" Yeah. What you
Yeah.
think? Like,
Right.
I never. Yeah, I'm seeing other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't just pop up.
And because you were in your healed space,
Yeah.
that wasn't like you weren't in a mode of desperation where you were like, oh, I can't tell him that I'm seeing other people because that might, you
Yeah.
know it's like, yeah, sure, I'm dating
I
other
am.
people, I'm out here. So it wasn't like a thing,
Exactly.
you
Because
know?
sometimes women think they meet somebody, got to cut everybody off, or
Yeah.
just
Oh
they're
gosh,
so
no.
laser
Yeah.
focused on him. Nah, that
Yeah.
wasn't
No.
what I
No.
was.
No. And I think that gave him the space and took some pressure off of him
Mm-hmm.
to be like, okay, I can just kind of ease into this and share and talk, and we
Mm-hmm.
can kind of grow in this versus we already and it's just like all
Mm-hmm.
the pressure is she the one, is he the one?
For sure.
It doesn't have to be all that. It doesn't have to be all that,
And
it could
I
just.
honestly didn't know that my husband was the one for like a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I didn't get like that confirmation when we say in church. I
Okay.
didn't get confirmation for a year. So
Ah,
I
gotcha.
met him in 2016. I didn't get confirmation until September, a year later, 2016, at the Congressional Black Caucus.
Okay. Okay.
So we were dating, and I was like, Lord, you're not breaking this up. Like normally, he'll break it
If it's
up.
not right,
It
the
don't
Lord
work
break it
out.
up.
But I was super intentional about honoring God in a relationship, honoring
Mm-hmm.
God. We and doing it the right way, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So we were hands off, that kind of thing, and
Right.
dating, and just trying to enjoy each other's company. So I think we got in a relationship. We met in September. I think we got into an official relationship in January of
Okay.
2017. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, Lord, like this is still happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And so, um, in September of that year, he was working, uh, and I had met him. We were going to an event, so I had met him at his room. And when I
Okay.
get there, he's not ready. He like sitting on there eating. And he ordered some room service. I'm like,
Oh.
we gotta go. What you doing? And I heard the Lord say, "Let him lead you."
Oh.
And I sat down. I said, "That's my husband."
Mm. Mm.
Like all that time we're dating, we're in a relationship,
Yes.
we're going places, doing things, having fun.
Okay.
And I heard the Lord say, "Let him lead you." And I sat
That's
down
different.
and I waited until he was finished getting
That
himself
is
together.
amazing.
He said, "I've been working all day. I'm hungry. I just need to sit down for a minute."
Okay.
Yeah. And when I
Oh.
heard that, that's when I like, that's my husband. Now I had somebody close to us tell us that we were supposed to be married,
Okay.
but I had those instances before
Before. Right.
where
Yeah.
what people like, that's your husband, God sent
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
and that. And I was
Yeah.
like,
I'm
nah,
not a fan, I have to admit.
I need to hear it for myself because that was
Right.
the wrong
Yeah.
road, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
um I heard it for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And hearing it for yourself is crucial, number one,
Mm-hmm.
especially in those kind of situations. And I'm not a big fan, to be honest, but I get it. But I'm not a big
Mm-hmm.
fan of the Lord said A and B, or your husband,
Mm-hmm.
or spouse, or your wife,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Um, but and I should say, however, with that, um, there were some signs that were already kind of in place. So by the time the
Mm-hmm.
Lord said that, it wasn't like, what? It wasn't like, oh,
Yeah, no.
it wasn't like big shock. There were some things that were already kind of like naturally kind of happening. You were just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, oh, okay. And it
Yeah,
kind of made sense
yeah.
versus, what?
Mm-hmm.
Sheer shock.
Yeah, no
And
shot.
so I think that's a part of it. I think
Mm-hmm.
those of us who are open for, people to share words like that and say so and so is your husband or your wife and that kind of thing, please have your own conviction and
Yeah,
your own word, number
yeah.
one. And number two, make sure there are some things that are already in place that are in agreement with that word, and
Mm-hmm.
it's and
Mm-hmm.
are confirming that
For
word.
sure.
I'll say that.
Absolutely.
So I love that. That's a great way to kind of segue into kind of starting to wrap up here. My last little thing I'm going to ask you to do is give a little advice to those who are kind of in their heart saying, wow, I really thought I would be married, by now, do you have, you can really give anything if you have a scripture that really was like kind of your anchor to help you get through it,
Yeah.
or something someone may have shared with you during that time that really gave you the, gave you just something to hold on to, because it can, again, like I said earlier, it's difficult,
It's
especially
very
if you really
difficult,
desire that.
for
So
sure.
go ahead.
If you desire a companion, I really feel like one of the things is to lean into your purpose.
Mm,
So I'm super intentional about that.
yeah.
So while I was seeking purpose, because honestly, one of the reasons why I was even going to the Congressional Black Caucus is
Mm-hmm.
because of my role in my job at the time.
Mm,
It's because I have found an interest in politics and some things that I'm interested in my future. So
mm-hmm.
when I think about why I was there, it was
Yeah.
solely because I was leaning into purpose,
That's so good.
right?
Yeah.
Solely because um that's where the Lord says, so it's not only purpose but obedience,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was when I obeyed God, right,
Mm-hmm.
I bumped into my purpose partner.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
So, and I know that might sound easy, that might sound, oh, that's a typical kind of response, but what I had to say on that is,
Mm-hmm.
think about Boaz. She was doing what she was supposed to do in
Mm-hmm.
purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're in purpose, when you're in the will of God, when you're obedient, because she had to be
Obedient.
obedient to instruction,
Obedient. Yes, yes.
right? So it's two
Mm-hmm.
things: it's obedience, and then there's finding purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things that I think I'm leaning into this year, not only on my podcast, the Girl Go Global podcast, but
Yeah.
also for my upcoming event in September. We're going to lean it into purpose, embracing our
Yeah.
multi-layered lives in Washington, D.C. We're going to be having an event around purpose, around networking, around building community. And so, yeah, I believe it's purpose and obedience.
Yes. Dr. Jasmine, that obedience piece is so crucial. And combining that with the purpose piece, because we kind of always have one or the other, but we don't always have it together.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're leaning so hard into purpose until it consumes us to the point where we're not available,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not even in a space where if a guy approached us that we would be ready to be like, oh yeah, I'm ready for a relationship.
Right.
Sometimes you can be that far into purpose. Sometimes you can be over here being obedient, but you don't really have any purpose to it. So you're kind of in a space of, and this is not to say that there's anything wrong with being obedient. It's just that sometimes in our obedience, we are trying to, what's a good word? I think sometimes we're trying to manipulate God's hand in a certain way.
Yeah.
Feeling like if I serve, if I do this, if I'm
No,
always
I've been there.
available, you know what I'm trying to say? That's gonna,
That's going to
somehow get
speed
God
God up.
to
That's going to make God
speed
hurry
God
up.
up, make him pick me as his favorite or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
give me what I want. It's there's a balance, y'all. And when you
Mm-hmm.
put that purpose and that obedience together, you get that balance. And
Mm-hmm.
then again, back to that heart rhythm. Then you're on rhythm, and
Right.
these and things start to open up and unfold for you. So I'm glad you put it that way, because I think sometimes we have one or the other, and we don't always have them both together. And I'm glad you also mentioned your upcoming event that I will be at. I'm excited to be there.
Oh, I'm so
I will be
excited.
there. I'm so excited. We are going to have the link for Dr. Jasmine's upcoming event. It's
Girl Go Bloom. So I've partnered
That's
with
it.
an organization called Bloom Her LLC.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Leah Bondo, she is the leader of that organization. And so we're better together. So we joined
Yeah.
forces, Girl Go Global, as well as Bloom Her, to host an event called Girl Go Bloom.
I love that.
Right.
Girl,
And
go
so
bloom.
we're coming together to not only network, but to be empowered and inspired to elevate into our purpose, to elevate into our businesses, all of the things. We're curating a space where
Yes.
everything you need is in the room. We're
Ooh.
curating a space where you can network with some people, get some new leads on podcast guests. You can network
Yes.
and bring build your businesses. We're curating a space not only where you can merge your faith, but also your works, right?
Yes.
We are
Yes.
putting it all together. And so giving you the resources you need to step into purpose, to step into your power, and to step into the next phase of your life. And by the way,
Yes.
that same weekend, September the 14th, that's CBC week, right? So
It
I
is.
husband at the Congressional Black Caucus. Why not you? I'll be there.
Come on now.
Not looking for nobody, but just because I love the caucus. And there's always a good time. So just come into DC and enjoy the whole weekend and register to attend Girl Go Bloom, because
Yes.
we're going to be at in DC near DuPont Circle having a time, having a connection, building connection, and just leaving you uplifted and inspired.
I love it, Dr. Jasmine. And I love that name, Girl Go Bloom. That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. And that's where you're gonna actually see purpose and obedience together. I need
Mm-hmm.
y'all to pray about it. Is this what I need to be at? And if the Lord says I need you to be there, I need you to be obedient, because
Yes.
purpose is already gonna be in the room. So, that's a given. All right. And I need you all to register. Like I said, I'm gonna add the link to Girl Go Bloom in the show notes so that you can have access to that. Also, you're going to have in the show notes a link to Dr. Jasmine's book, Heart Rhythms. I need you to be take advantage of that as well. And
Yes.
I just want to thank Dr. Jasmine Leigh Morse for joining me today on this episode of the Single But Not Solo podcast, where we are giving you a fresh perspective on being single. And I'm telling you, there were so many nuggets dropped until you just gonna have to listen to this a couple of times, okay? Okay, that's what you're gonna have to do, and then you're gonna have to get on over to the Girl Go Bloom registration site and get your ticket and get ready to be there.
Yes.
And you're gonna have to grab that book, Heart Rhythms,
Yeah, we'll be
and
signing copies at the event.
oh
Will
yes,
be on a
okay,
discounted rate, but you can roll over to Amazon or any way you buy books. But it will be there, as well as a new journal that I'm working on about
yes,
purpose, stepping into purpose and igniting your purpose. And so we're trying
Dr.
to equip
Jasmine,
you with everything you need to live
awesome.
your faith-filled
I
life, but
love
do it
it.
in a way that you can embrace your multi-layered life. You're not one note.
Absolutely.
We're not one note.
You're not.
With so many things.
You're
This phase
not.
of my life, I'm becoming someone else, right? And so that's
I
what
know.
we're so empowered and inspired to do, and to help women build in that way as well.
That is beautiful. It's lining up so well with where I am in my life as well, and just being able to really employ all of my gifts, and that's something that between me and the Lord that we are on, and that's our thing for this year. So apply that purpose and that obedience together, y'all, and move with God's rhythm for my life. So again, Dr. Jasmine, thank you for sharing so candidly with us, and just spending this time with the Single But Not Solo podcast listeners and viewers. Y'all check Dr. Jasmine out, Girl Go Global, on all social media platforms, and get registered for Girl Go Bloom. All right. And I just want to say thank you again, Dr. Jasmine. I really appreciate you. I'll see you at Girl Go Bloom,
Oh,
and I
I
hope to
appreciate it
see,
so much.
yes, and I hope to see some of my Single But Not Solo folks there too. All right. In the meantime, though, y'all be blessed, and I will chat with you a little later.
Oh, thank you.